This is Sunderland, industrial centre, county borough, and the largest town in the historic county of Durham. Situated about the banks of the River Wear, Sunderland has long been famous as a shipbuilding centre, and the famous shipyards of the River Wear can claim the highest output of new ships of any shipbuilding town in the world. The North Sea is occasionally whipped by the fury of a northeaster, but the harbour is an excellent one, and safe berths and good docking facilities are provided by the port authorities. The seaside districts of Roker and Seaburn provide a welcome relief from the sterner outline of the town itself. And what more pleasant contrast could be imagined than this? Although only a few yards from the clamour and rattle of the shipyards and factories, this seafront might well be in another world, as far as the carefree holidaymakers are concerned. These people of Sunderland leave their homes each morning and go off on their daily round, to the factory or shipyard, consulting room or colliery, to the office or shop, but all returning to their homes when their various duties are done. Some of them are in a hurry. Some have time on their hands. Some have their share of troubles. But the youngsters always have a wonderful time. Here then are some of the 181,000 citizens of Sunderland for whom the corporation provide many essential services. Isn't this traffic terrible, dearie? One of the most important and efficient of the public services is the transport undertaking. The department, under the control of the Town Council through its Transport Committee, is financially self-supporting. And this film has been made to illustrate how the undertaking serves the people of this industrial metropolis of the northeast. The cheerful green of the corporation buses is more and more becoming an essential part of the Sunderland scene. First of all, let's consider the actual territory served by the department. The county borough of Sunderland extends from Whitburn in the north and Hilton in the west to Ryhope in the south. Horse-drawn trams appeared in the streets of Sunderland as early as 1875, but it was in 1900 that the corporation started operating the first electric trams. The fleet consisted then of 50 vehicles, and the number in service rose steadily to a maximum of 91. The tram services covered these routes. The advent of the motor bus enabled the service area to be extended in step with the demand. Many people had a regard for the homely tram, and some were sorry to see them disappear from the streets. They gave first-class service to the public for many years, but the costs of operation and the problem of present-day traffic congestion have proved them to be unsatisfactory compared with other forms of public transport. The trams were finally taken out of service in 1954, and most people were relieved to see the unsightly overhead wires removed. As the tram lines disappear, work is in hand to provide better road services. The pride of the Transport Department for many years, the faithful tram, has now been eclipsed by the motor bus. At present, the fleet of buses owned by the corporation numbers nearly 200, and the regular routes cover 64 miles of roads. Corporation buses altogether run more than 5 million miles each year. During the year's running, over 500,000 gallons of fuel oil are consumed. 85 million tickets are issued. This is the actual pile of tickets which will be used in one day in Sunderland. Some of these passengers may be amongst the 7,000 absent-minded people who leave their personal property in the buses each year. Somebody must feel very down in the mouth about this. He apparently hasn't missed them either. The fares you pay represent extremely good value for money. Now, who are the people who patronize corporation transport services mostly? Top of the list comes industry. For centuries, the people of Sunderland have proved themselves to be the most versatile and adaptable in industry, and launches like this are almost an everyday spectacle for Wearsiders. The town is, of course, famed for its shipbuilding connections. Wearside shipyards bear names which are household words in the industry, and their reputation for fine vessels comes from pride of craftsmanship. As a matter of fact, this type of marine engine is one of a design patented many years ago by a famous Sunderland firm. Similar engines are now built throughout the world under license. The giant power unit is being tested on overload under the supervision of highly qualified specialists. But it's finishing time now for the workmen. And they're off to get good places in the bus queues for home. The county of Durham covers one of the most extensive coal fields in the country, and this Wearside colliery repeatedly breaks its output target. No more rugged but kindly soul exists than the typical North Country miner, but heavy workers in all industries need plenty of relaxation from their work. The transport services provide a very efficient link. This gigantic rectifier globe will be used in the electrical industry. It's made at a very famous glassworks in Sunderland, along with 1,000 other articles of scientific and industrial glassware. In the glass industry, individual craftsmanship is still very much in demand. These experts, using long blowpipes, gather white-hot molten glass from the melting tank and, deftly swinging their glowing wands, apply an occasional puff of air to expand the plastic mass. After forming to the exact shape in a split mold, the cooled article is carefully snapped off the end of the blowpipe. It's then sent for inspection and finishing. The output of high-glass laboratory glassware from this section of the factory is really colossal, but the firm is perhaps even better known for its domestic table and ovenware, which is a household word throughout the world. Here you can see one of the mammoth automatic machines which turn out these popular articles by the thousand. In spite of the enormous production, each single article is minutely examined for possible flaws. Once again, the corporation buses are near at hand and ready to take the workers back to their homes. Each evening, the scramble out of town begins. The office workers, the shoppers, the sales staff, and the sightseers all join the general exodus and leave the cares of the workaday world behind them. At the bus station, queues are forming, but there are plenty of buses to meet the demand. The barrier rails attract many young gymnasts, but the bus station is really not the proper place for kiddies to play. That young lady seems to believe in safety last. These little girls have been taught their curb drill, but of course this is their very own school special. It's one of a much-needed service of buses for school children. The kiddies love it, and they're well looked after by the staff. Holiday crowds always present problems for any transport department. On this fine sunny day, every serviceable bus is on the road, helping to carry happy crowds to the coast. But few of these people will appreciate the planning and organization necessary to provide sufficient buses to meet the demand. This line of vehicles is ready for the expected rush, and the front one has just been called out. It will carry more and more of the eager sun worshippers to the beaches. At the same time, of course, the regular services in other parts of the borough must still run according to schedule. A day at the seaside is certainly a tonic for the grown-ups, but it usually goes all too quickly for the youngsters. But all good things must come to an end, and in the evening the trek for home begins. More and more of them come, but their transport is there to meet them. Many people like to take advantage of a really fine night, and it will be late when these queues show signs of abating. Sorry, sir. Full up now. So much for holiday crowds. Now this driver is off to deal with an even more concentrated mass of humanity. Can you guess? Yes, it's a football match. This is Roker Park Ground, one of the finest in the country, and Sunderland are playing Blackpool. The match brought a gate of about 51,000 spectators, just about 1/5 of the number of persons conveyed on corporation buses on any ordinary working day in Sunderland. Quite a crowd, isn't it? But the transport department are quite used to handling large numbers of people like this. They do it every day, and they're proud of the service they give to the public. When it's all over, the buses are returned to their depots and prepared for the next day's work. First of all, the fuel tanks must be refilled. Sunderland Corporation buses run on diesel oil because it's more economical than petrol. Each tank holds about 30 gallons. The vehicle is now checked in and a report made out by the driver. The report details any faults in the performance of the vehicle. Frequent servicing of the entire fleet is undertaken at the corporation repair depots. For instance, front wheel alignment must be carefully checked for safety purposes and to avoid excessive tire wear. This optical gauge enables the wheels to be checked speedily and accurately. A bus full of passengers weighs over 10 tons, and its brakes will be applied 2,000 times a day. Therefore, brakes are priority number one. This is one of the brake drums. And these are the shoes which stop the bus. The brake linings are due for renewal. There goes one of the two axle shafts which drive the rear wheels. The giant tires are examined regularly to ensure the safety and comfort of the riders. The time arrives when the engine requires overhaul. This engine has completed 5 years' work. Removal of the engine enables attention to be given to chassis details. Engine auxiliaries are removed and handed over to the specialist staff for reconditioning. The undertaking carries out all its own repairs. The dynamo generates electricity for the starter and bus lighting. After reassembly, the dynamo is put through its paces on a power-driven test bench which reproduces the conditions on the vehicle. On the right of this machine, you can see a fuel injection pump under test. The fuel pump measures a minute quantity of fuel to each cylinder. It must be tested periodically if we are to obtain the most miles per gallon. The fitter is balancing the amount of fuel delivered to each cylinder, what is known as calibrating. After dismantling, all engine details are inspected and new parts fitted where required. This crankshaft, believe it or not, will turn in its bearings 1,000 million times without further attention. Steering, springs, and other chassis details are overhauled before an engine is refitted. Bodies are subjected to rough treatment and have to be periodically stripped and brought back to standard. The buses are painted about every 2 years to keep them smart. The sign writer adds his splash of colour. The familiar coat of arms is put on by means of transfers like this. After a day's running, the coachwork gets a good wash down in this mechanical plant. Plenty of water at high pressure and these revolving brushes soon remove every bit of mud and grime. Most car owners would like one of these. The safety of passengers and other road users is always the concern of transport operators. As an additional safeguard, all buses are examined every year by Ministry of Transport experts. Here the inspector checks up on brakes, steering and ball joints. And now the transmission. And the buses are ready for service again. These are members of the Transport Committee. They are responsible to the Town Council for the policy of the Transport Department. They've just returned from their annual inspection of the system. Ten past 4 in the morning. That's the time some of the staff have to get up to be on duty for the early buses starting at 5:15 a.m. Their job's not an easy one. It calls for honesty, tact, and plenty of common sense. The work is exacting and can be very tiring, but being nothing if not human, transport workers like to relax at the end of their shift. But conductors have to pay in first at the cash office. These are the coppers, the sixpences, shillings and half-crowns that you hand to the conductor for your fare. They all add up to the vast sum of money required each year to run the department, to buy the vehicles themselves, to pay for the fuel and tires, the wages and materials, bus shelters, stop signs, tickets and timetables, uniforms, repairs and servicing of vehicles, and taxes and insurance. But not money alone can provide an efficient service. It is the spirit in which the work is done that marks the contrast between a lifeless concern and an efficient living organization which does the job and does it well. But in the canteen, it's away dull care, and a cup of tea always works wonders. Not until midnight do the outside staff leave for home, but all night long the work goes on of preparing the buses for the next day's work. But for the crews of the late buses, it's home, a nightcap, and their well-earned rest. In this film, we've attempted to show something of the background of the public transport services in Sunderland. Whatever your destination, whether shipyard or factory, school or playing field, cinema or seashore, the staff of the Transport Department will be at your service next time you are going places.